Good afternoon, fourth grade. We are going to continue reading in Where the Mountain Meets the Moon, chapter 18. As we are doing the fill in the blanks, you actually need to write the missing word in the blank so that you can get full credit. Let's get ready to fill in the blank. Minli and Dragon continue their journey to Never-Ending Mountain, and they swim across a river. A goldfish swims up to them because she thinks Dragon is her Aunt Jen. Based on how the goldfish describes Aunt Jen, Minli thinks she actually bought and freed Aunt Jen. When Minli and Dragon reach the busy city of bright moonlight, Dragon decides to stay outside the gate. Minli goes inside the city and meets a boy and his buffalo. The boy invited Minli back to his home. She follows him. Today, press pause to write down your answers in the blanks and play when you're ready for the focus question. It says, how can we describe the buffalo boy and his life based on his vast evidence? Our vocabulary words for today are content. That's when you are peaceful and happy. Draw a line from content to this picture. The second word is hollow. That means something is empty on the inside. This tree is hollow. Draw a line to this picture from hollow. And then lastly, we have sprawled. And that's just like lay out on the ground with your arms and legs spread out in an awkward way. Draw a line from sprawled to this picture of the cat. Turn the page. As we are reading chapter 18, we are going to use our CSBS strategy so that we know we're understanding the text. So I am on page 102, and I'm getting ready to read out loud. Minli followed the boy through the maze of streets and alleyways for what seemed like a long time. If it wasn't for the big buffalo that was always in view, Minli would have easily lost him many times. Not far now, the boy said to her. Minli realized that the boy lived very far from the inner city. The road was no longer stone, but dirt. Even from a distance, she could see that the outer city wall was cracked and broken. I live over here, the boy said, pointing. And Minli looked down a muddy path that led to a shabby, rickety hut that looked as if the first strong wind would blow it away. Let's stop right there. We should underline these sentences that tell us about Minli and the boy. And we know that Minli is following the boy following the boy outside the city to his house. So in box 1, we would write down the buffalo boy is taking Minli to his house. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the quote. And we would write down this quote. Minli realized that the boy lived very far from the inner city. Press pause to write down the quote and play when you're ready to keep reading. We're at the top of page 103, and now we're looking for the setting. The boy brought the buffalo right into the hut, and Minli went in after. She looked around the small, meager home. The only furnishings Minli could see were 2 wooden crates and a rough stool. On one side of the hut, a crude metal grate stood in the fireplace with a well-worn pot on it. The other half of the hut was divided into 2 piles of dry grass. Minli watched as the buffalo went directly to one pile and lay down. The boy gave it an affectionate slap on the side and dragged the rough wooden stool across the floor to her. Here, have a seat, he said as he sprawled onto the other pile of grass. And tell me why you want to go to the palace so much. we'll stop right here. The narrator described to us what the Buffalo Boy's hut looks like, and that is the setting of our story. And so we would write for the setting, Min Lee and the Buffalo Boy are at the boy's house, a shabby, rickety hut in the outer city around nighttime. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the quote. And for the quote, we could write down this quote that says, she looked around at the small, meager home. Press pause to write down the quote in the second part of box 2 and play when you're ready to keep reading. Let's keep reading to find the problem. Middle of page 103. It's not the palace, Min Lee said as she sat on the stool. I want to see the king. And she told the Buffalo Boy the whole story. She saw his face wrinkle with disbelief when she talked about the fish, and he shook his head when she talked about the dragon, but he didn't interrupt once. I don't know how you're going to see the king, the boy told her when she finished. Even if you do see him, I doubt you'll be able to ask for a borrowed line, especially when you don't even know what it is. But I have to, Min Lee said. There must be a way. Well, I always think better after I've eaten, the boy said, and he stood up and opened the crates. Let's have dinner. All right, so when we're thinking back to Min Lee's problem, we know that she has to get the borrowed line from the guardian of the city, and she doesn't know how to do that. So in box 3, we would write, Min Lee needs to figure out how to get to the king so that she can ask for the borrowed line. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the quote. And we would write down what the Buffalo Boy says. I don't know how you're going to see the king, the boy told her when she finished. Even if you do see him, I doubt you'll be able to ask for the borrowed line, especially when you don't even know what it is. Press pause to write down the quote and play when you're ready for the solution. All right, and the Buffalo Boy, because they don't know what to do, the Buffalo Boy says he thinks better after he's eaten, so that they should just eat dinner and maybe they'll come up with an idea. And so in box 4, we would write, Min Lee and the Buffalo Boy ate dinner because the Buffalo Boy thinks better after he has eaten. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the quote. And in the quote, we would write down what he says. Well, I've always think better after I've eaten, the boy said. And he stood up and opened one of the crates. Let's have dinner. Silently write that quote in the last part of box 4. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the paragraph. All right, and for our paragraph, it says, how can we describe the Buffalo Boy and his life based on his CSPS? And so we would look, you should really focus on that setting piece. Like what inferences can you make about his life based on where he's living and how he's living?